I was scheduled to spend a year on business in Europe. Just before I left, my fiancée, Vanessa, asked for the keys to the villa I had just finished renovating. She promised to wire me $1 a month, as rent, she joked. I laughed and said yes. But the trip didn't last nearly that long. Business took off faster than expected. Within 6 months, I was back in Riverton. I didn't tell anyone, I thought it'd be fun to surprise her. I had no idea the surprise would be mine. When I rang the doorbell, a man I'd never seen before opened the door. He had a cat in his arms. A pack of dogs hovered just behind him. He gave me a once-over, eyeing the suit and briefcase. Then waved me off. "This place isn't for sale. Go on, get." I froze, thinking I had the wrong address. But the house number above the door was unmistakable. It was my villa. My name on the deed. My hardwood floors and Italian fixtures inside. "Did you not hear me?" the man snapped. "Leave, or I'm calling security." He slammed the door in my face before I could say a word. The sun disappeared behind a cloud. The gift box I'd brought back from Europe, wrapped, ribboned, and full of care, suddenly felt like a cinder block in my hand. "Excuse me, sir." A security guard jogged up, voice tight with suspicion. "This is a private neighborhood. Visitors can't linger on the property without permission." I turned to him, confused, frustrated. "I'm Ethan Caldwell. I own this house." The guard squinted, frowning. Then shook his head. "That's not possible. Mr. Leclerc's been living here for 6 months now. And according to the HOA, the only registered owners are him and a Ms. Monroe." My stomach dropped. Just as I was about to respond, the low growl of a Ferrari cut through the silence. It pulled into the driveway, sleek and arrogant, gleaming in the afternoon sun. Vanessa stepped out, arms draped with luxury shopping bags from brands. She froze when she saw me. One of the paper bags slipped. A lipstick tube clattered to the ground, unnoticed. Her lips parted. "Ethan," she breathed. What are you doing back?" I crouched to pick up the lipstick. My eyes caught something else. Her left hand. Bare. The diamond engagement ring was gone. The front door creaked. The man from earlier leaned out, voice casual, too casual. "You're back?" The security guard took the hint and slipped away, leaving just the 3 of us. No one moved. No one spoke. The air turned heavy. Still. Toxic. I broke the silence, my voice raw. "Vanessa, what the hell is going on?" She hesitated. Then pulled a brittle smile over her face like a mask. "Ethan, this is Mason," she said, her tone too bright, too rehearsed. "He's a junior from Hudson University. My underclassman." She cleared her throat, eyes darting to the side. "He just moved to Riverton. Still job hunting. I let him stay here for a while." I stared into her eyes. My voice was ice. "For a while? He's been here half a year." Her fingers twisted nervously, knotting themselves together. Her gaze slid away. No, it hasn't been that long. Maybe 2 or 3 months. Tops." Mason's demeanor flipped like a switch. Gone was the dismissive arrogance. In its place bloomed an over-the-top smile, all teeth and syrupy charm. He rushed up to me, closing the distance in 3 eager steps. "Mr. Caldwell. My God, I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you earlier. That was totally my mistake. Please, don't take it personally, I beg you." His voice dripped with sweetness, so thick it was nauseating. As if the man who had tried to toss me out like a stray dog 5 minutes ago had never existed. I stared at his performance, cold and silent. He was wearing high-end loungewear that cost more than most people's rent. And on his wrist, a $200,000 timepiece. The same one Vanessa had gifted me for my birthday last year. Bought with my credit card. Ethan, Vanessa's voice was soft, like she thought gentle tones might soften the blow. Mason was always good to me back at Hudson University, she said, almost wistful. He's new in Riverton. Still figuring things out. I just wanted to help him get settled. I laughed once, sharp, bitter. Help him? By moving him into my villa? By wiping my name off the HOA records? Mason's eyes darted like a cornered animal's. Then he slapped his forehead with theatrical flair. Oh man, what a mix-up. That's totally on me. Last month the HOA dropped by for an update and, well, Vanessa wasn't home, and I just filled in my own info. He chuckled nervously, backing away half a step. But don't worry. I'll head over to the HOA first thing and get everything fixed up. Stat. His words were earnest, almost too earnest. But I noticed something. While he spoke, his right index finger tapped nervously against his thigh. His gaze never stayed still for more than a second. In psychology, those are classic signs of deception. He was lying. And worse. The way he spoke to Vanessa, the softness, the familiarity. It was intimate in a way that had nothing to do with helping an old college friend. Still, I didn't explode, not yet. I just flew halfway across the world, I said, my voice quiet but edged with steel. You're not even going to invite me inside? Vanessa flinched. Mason's grin faltered, freezing at the edges. They exchanged a glance. A single glance. But it hit me like a gut punch. Whatever passed between them in that look, it wasn't something you could explain away. Ethan, Vanessa said, forcing a light tone that didn't match her expression. Maybe another time, okay? Mason's got a lot of pets. The place is a mess right now. I didn't let her finish. I shoved past Mason and walked straight through the front door. The moment I stepped inside, I knew. The air didn't smell like home anymore. There was a heavy cologne hanging in the room, something musky, expensive, unfamiliar. And beneath it, the faint trace of Vanessa's signature perfume. But the house itself was unrecognizable. The living room had been completely redone. Gone were the sleek, understated pieces I'd hand-picked from Milan and Copenhagen. In their place stood a gaudy mess of faux European furniture, ornate, shiny, cheap in spirit despite its price tag. The framed photo of me and Vanessa that used to hang above the fireplace was gone. In its place, a trio of chaotic abstract paintings that screamed, new money trying too hard. And then I saw it. The dining table. 2 wine glasses sat there, one slightly tipped. Dark red residue clung to the bottoms, still wet. Beside them, a torn-open condom wrapper. Vanessa's face turned crimson. In a rush, she darted forward and snatched the condom wrapper off the table, tossing it into the trash like it might erase the moment. It's not what you think, she said, voice high and shaky. Mason sometimes brings his girlfriend over. Just once in a while. Mason jumped in quickly, as if they'd rehearsed the line. Yeah, she was here last week, he said with a nervous chuckle. Vanessa's been super generous. I mean, she not only let me crash here, she's cool with me having friends over too. He smiled, eyes flicking to me, scanning my face like a gambler watching the dealer's hands. I didn't respond. I turned and walked straight toward the master bedroom. Vanessa gasped. Ethan, wait. But I was already at the door. I pushed it open. The bed was a mess, sheets twisted, pillows thrown. On the nightstand sat a picture frame. In the photo, Vanessa and Mason were pressed together, cheek to cheek, grinning like teenagers. Behind them, a stretch of turquoise water and white sand. Coco Island, Maldives. My head started to pound. That was where we'd planned to hold our wedding next spring. Vanessa stood behind me, eyes darting anywhere but my face. She stared at the curtains. The wall. The carpet. Anywhere but me. Ethan, let me explain, she whispered. Last month, the company sent me to the Maldives to meet with a French client. It was last minute. Mason speaks fluent French, so I brought him along as a translator. She motioned vaguely toward the photo. That picture was taken after the meeting. Just a quick shot on the beach. My brow furrowed. But I thought you majored in French. Vanessa flinched. For half a second, the room stood still. Then Mason stepped forward, head bowed slightly, voice soft and deferential, almost reverent. "Mr. Caldwell, please, don't blame Vanessa," he said. "She didn't want to take me. I practically begged her. I've never traveled. I wanted to see the world a little. She was being kind." He paused, then added carefully. "You know, I don't really have anyone in Riverton. She's the closest thing I've got to family here." I turned back to Vanessa. Her lashes fluttered. Her lips were pressed into a tight, colorless line. A fine sheen of sweat glistened at her hairline. Guilt was carved into every feature of her face. I kept my voice low. "Is that so? Then explain to me why the beach in that photo looks exactly like the venue I booked for our wedding." Vanessa paled. "That's just a coincidence," she said, forcing the words out like they burned her throat. "All the beaches in the Maldives look the same." Mason jumped in immediately, as if afraid to let the silence settle. "She's not lying. The beaches there really do look alike. Most people wouldn't even notice the difference." I let my gaze drift across the room. The disheveled bed. The wine glasses still half full. The traces of someone else's presence in what was once mine. And then her hand. Her left hand. Bare. Where there should have been a diamond ring, there was only skin. I nodded toward it. "And where's the engagement ring I gave you?" Vanessa's eyes darted again, searching for cover, for distance, for an answer. "I've been trying to learn housework," she murmured. "I was afraid I might lose it, so I put it away." I was about to speak again when Mason suddenly cut in. "Man, I'm starving." Vanessa's face softened immediately, like a reflex. "I'll make something," she said quickly. "Just relax, I'll be right back." She slipped into the kitchen, tying on an apron like it was second nature. With practiced ease, she pulled ingredients from the fridge and started prepping the meal. I watched her in silence. For a brief moment, it all felt upside down. Like they were the ones who lived here. Like I was the guest. Vanessa moved through the kitchen with quiet efficiency. When the oil hit the pan and smoke curled into the air, she didn't even flinch. And just like that. A memory. The day we got engaged. She had leaned into my shoulder, laughing as she said, "Ethan, promise me one thing. Before or after the wedding, I'll never lift a finger around the house. You're going to spoil me forever." I had smiled. Promised. Meant it. And I'd kept that promise. But here she was. Willing. Busy. Cooking for another man. Mason lounged on the couch like he owned the place, one leg casually crossed over the other. There was a smug little curve to his lips as he glanced my way. "You should stay for dinner, Mr. Caldwell," he said with false warmth. "Vanessa's cooking is insane." I said nothing. He kept going, tone cheery and obnoxious. "Better than anything you'd get at a hotel." I pressed my lips together, then asked flatly. "So, she's been cooking for you all this time?" Mason nodded without hesitation. "Every day. She always switches it up, keeps it interesting. She says it's tough being alone in a new city. Wanted me to feel at home. He gave a sheepish smile. I gotta say, it means a lot. She's been really good to me. I smiled back. But it wasn't a real smile. It was the kind that tastes like metal in your mouth, bitter, sharp, and slow to fade. Vanessa walked out of the kitchen carrying a dish in both hands. She caught the tail end of our conversation, and for a split second, her hands faltered. The plate wobbled slightly before she caught herself. She forced a smile, setting the food down on the table. "Ethan," she said gently, "I made roast wraps and mashed potatoes. Been learning a few new recipes lately." I stared at her for a long moment, then spoke, slow and even. "Didn't you used to say you hated the smell of cooking oil? That you'd never set foot in a kitchen, let alone do housework?" Her smile froze. Her fingers curled tightly around the edge of her apron. Mason jumped in like it was his cue, voice bright, face all charm. "Come on, Mr. Caldwell," he said with a chuckle, "people change. Vanessa's become downright domestic. Isn't that what every man dreams of?" I let out a cold, breathless laugh through my nose. Didn't answer. At the table, Mason wouldn't stop complimenting the food. Vanessa echoed him here and there, but her eyes never once met mine. She kept them fixed on her plate, on the wall, anywhere but me. The food was good. Perfect, even. But it might as well have been cardboard in my mouth. Mason turned to her, voice soft, almost tender. "You've lost weight," he said. "Eat a little more, okay?" Then he glanced at me out of the corner of his eye, the edge of his mouth curving just slightly. Vanessa flushed and poked at the food in her bowl. Her voice was barely audible. "Thanks, Mason. You too." I watched them, every glance, every movement. My chest felt tight, as if something enormous and invisible had been placed there, pressing down. I set my fork and knife on the table, stood up, and said flatly, "I'm done." Mason blinked theatrically. "Already full, Mr. Caldwell? Vanessa's cooking doesn't come around every day." As he spoke, he leaned over and gently dabbed the corner of Vanessa's mouth with a napkin. The motion was smooth. Familiar. Like he'd done it 100 times. I didn't respond. Didn't even look at them. I turned and walked out of the dining room. Behind me, hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. Vanessa caught up and grabbed my sleeve. "Ethan, please, don't misunderstand. I just felt bad. Mason's all alone here, and I." "So you started cooking for him?" I cut her off, voice sharp and bitter. "Taught yourself housework for him? You really do take care of your underclassmen." Vanessa bit her lip, hard. "It's not like that," she insisted. "Mason's stomach is sensitive. He can't handle restaurant food. I didn't want him going hungry." She took a breath, voice picking up speed, desperation leaking into her tone. "And he's genuinely brilliant, he's helped me so much at work. That project with the French clients? We closed it because of him." "Enough." I raised a hand, shutting her down, then turned away and pushed open the study door. What I saw made my entire body go still. On the far wall, my mother's portrait. Tilted askew, the glass cracked down the center like a scar. Beneath it, her writing desk had been turned into a dumping ground. Her old leather-bound journal lay open beside a scatter of yellowed letters, some torn, some stained. And the smell. A sharp, rancid stench of dried cat urine hung in the air, clinging to the paper, the wood, the memory. My mother's memory. Defiled. What the hell is this? My voice shook with rage. Vanessa flinched, scrambling for words. And maybe it was Mason's pets, they must have. Must have what? I snapped, lifting the soaked journal in one trembling hand. The pages, my mother's handwriting, disintegrated as I touched them. Thin sheets, yellowed with time, collapsed under the stain. "This was my mother's diary," I said, my voice cracking at the edges. "And he let his damn animals piss all over it?" "Ethan, please, calm down," Vanessa stepped forward. "Mason's pets are usually well behaved. He's really careful with them. This has to be a freak accident." I ripped my arm from her grasp and pointed toward the bookshelf. Tooth marks. On the photo albums. My mother's memories, every last thing she left me, trashed. Vanessa opened her mouth but couldn't get a single word out. And then Mason strolled up to the doorway, casual as ever, a glass of red wine in his hand. "Mr. Caldwell," he said smoothly, "my bad." He took a sip of the wine, licking the taste off his lip. "My pets get a little nervous around new stuff. They act out sometimes. You know how it is." He gave a small, lazy smile. "Don't worry, I'll have someone reprint all the pictures. Same size, same paper. You won't be able to tell the difference." I saw red. Before I knew it, I had Mason by the collar and slammed him against the wall, hard. "Pack your things," I hissed through clenched teeth. "Take your animals and get the hell out. Now." Mason didn't flinch. Instead, he raised an eyebrow, cocky, unbothered. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, voice low and patronizing, "let's keep this civil, yeah? No need to get physical." Vanessa shrieked and rushed between us, prying my hand off his collar with both arms. "Have you lost your mind?" she shouted. "It's the middle of the night, where's he supposed to go?" Her nails dug deep into my forearm, but it wasn't the pain that stunned me. It was the way she looked at him. Worried. Protective. Like he was the one bleeding. "I don't give a damn where he goes," I snapped, shaking her off. "The park. A bench. Under a goddamn bridge. He just can't stay here." "No." Vanessa's voice cracked with fury. "He's my underclassman. I have to take care of him." I let out a bitter laugh, the kind that doesn't sound like laughter at all. "Do you even remember whose house this is?" Mason chuckled, actually chuckled, as he straightened the wrinkles in his shirt. Then he turned to me, calm as ever. "You drunk or just delusional, Mr. Caldwell? This villa belongs to Vanessa. What does it have to do with you?" It felt like someone had punched the air out of my lungs. I turned to Vanessa, waiting, begging, for her to say something. Anything. She didn't. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she crossed her arms and snapped. The house was sitting empty anyway. What's the harm in letting Mason stay a few days? I stared at her, jaw clenched. If he lives here, where exactly am I supposed to go? She blinked, then rolled her eyes like I was being unreasonable. "Get a hotel," she said. "Or stay at your family estate. It's not that serious. Once I help Mason settle somewhere, you can move back in." As Vanessa's words settled into the silence, Mason picked up a ragdoll cat from the couch. He cradled it gently, his fingers stroking the fur with practiced affection. His eyes turned red almost instantly. "Vanessa," he said softly, voice cracking just enough to sound sincere. "Do I really have to leave?" He buried his face briefly against the cat's head. "Look at Snowball. She's gotten used to the garden out back. She suns herself on the lawn every afternoon." Vanessa's expression melted. Her whole face shifted, sympathy blooming like instinct. Mason stepped forward, holding the cat out toward me. "Mr. Caldwell, just pet her. She's really sweet." I didn't move. The cat, as if on cue, hissed, mouth wide, eyes flashing, then slashed its paw across the back of my hand. "Ah!" I pulled back, startled. Mason let out a little gasp of concern, but waited just long enough before pulling the cat back to make sure the damage was done. "She never does that," he said innocently. "Must have been scared by the tension in the room. She's really sensitive to new people." He tapped the cat's nose playfully with his fingertip, then threw me a sideways glance, smug and taunting. Before I could speak, a sudden eruption of barking came from the living room. We turned in unison. 3 dogs, small, hyper, wild-eyed, were tearing across the room in chaotic circles. One of them, a curly-haired poodle, had my limited edition sneakers in its mouth, happily chewing through leather worth more than a mortgage payment. "Oh no!" Mason yelped, bolting after them. "They must have sensed we're moving out. They get separation anxiety." He dashed through the living room like a man in a slapstick routine, knocking over cushions, sending rugs flying. And then, accidentally, barreled straight into the wine cabinet. 2 bottles of vintage red hit the floor in slow motion. Glass shattered. Wine bled across the tile like spilled blood. Vanessa spun in panicked circles. "Ethan, do you see now? They can't handle sudden changes in environment." She barely got the words out before the poodle, the same one chewing on my sneakers, leapt onto the couch, squatted on my custom throw pillow, and pissed. Right there. In front of all of us. "Oh no," Mason sighed, slow as molasses. He reached for a tissue, moving like someone wiping down a wineglass, not a mess. "Really sorry, Mr. Caldwell," he said lazily. "She's usually so good about going outside. Must be all the stress tonight." As he spoke, he dabbed the stain, spreading it wider, not smaller. Vanessa turned to me, took my arm, and pulled me aside. Her voice was soft, measured. But the words froze me in place. "You see, don't you? Mason and his pets are settled here now." She smiled slightly, almost apologetic. "So how about this? There are still a few empty villas in the neighborhood. Why don't you buy another one? Let Mason keep this place. He's used to it." I stared at her. Her eyes were calm, rational. Like this was a business proposal, not a betrayal. "You're giving him the house?" "No, no," she said, shaking her head. "Not giving. Renting." She tilted her head, as if she were offering me a favor. "We'll do it like before. $1 a month." It took me several seconds to realize she wasn't joking. She meant it. Across the room, Mason clutched the ragdoll cat to his chest, crooning like a Broadway actor at final curtain. "Mr. Caldwell, you're scaring them," he said, rocking the cat like a child. "You should go cool off. Let's talk about this tomorrow." "Leave?" I laughed. Short. Sharp. Then everything inside me exploded. Why the hell should I be the one to leave? My voice echoed through the room, sharp enough to cut glass. "You've really forgotten who you are, haven't you?" I turned to Vanessa, rage vibrating under every word. "A chauffeur's daughter. That's all you were. And now you let someone else come in here, pissing on my floors, shitting on my name, like it's theirs?" My hands were fists before I even realized. "If I don't end this tonight, if I let you two walk away after what you've done, then I'm not a man. I'm a fool." I grabbed Mason by the back of the head and slammed him face first into the table. A sickening crack followed. His nose split open. Blood spattered across the marble, the wine glasses, my mother's ruined journal. The pets scattered in terror. The cat launched itself into a corner, dogs scrambling for cover, whining in confusion. "Ethan, Jesus, stop!" Vanessa screamed, rushing forward. She tried to pull me off him. I spun and struck her, hard. The sound of the slap rang louder than the shouts. She collapsed backward onto the floor, cheek already blossoming with welts, mascara streaked across her face like ash. "That," I said coldly, "was for my mother." I hauled Mason back up by the hair. His face was a mess of red. And then, another punch. A clean, brutal strike to the mouth. His front teeth gave way, skittering across the carpet like bits of chalk in a sea of blood. Whatever pride he'd been clinging to was gone. He curled in on himself, whimpering. "Mr. Caldwell, please, I was wrong." He didn't finish. My knee drove hard into his gut, folding him in half. He choked, gagged, then vomited onto the Persian rug he had once walked across so smugly. "Help, help me." Mason's voice cracked, thick with blood and panic. "He's lost it. He's completely insane." Vanessa crawled toward me on her knees, clinging to my leg, her face smeared with makeup and tears, eyes wild with terror. "Stop it," she sobbed. "You're going to kill him." I shoved her off, hard. She crashed into the dining table, sending shopping bags tumbling. Condoms. Lingerie. Silk and latex spilled across the floor like some twisted confetti. "Now you care?" I snarled. I stepped down, slowly, deliberately, onto Mason's wrist. He screamed, high and ragged, a sound torn from somewhere primal. Beneath my heel came the unmistakable crunch of bone. "He wore the watch I gave you," I said coldly. "He slept in my bed, trashed my mother's memory. Where was your sympathy then?" Vanessa, shaking, fumbled for her phone with blood-slick fingers. "Dad, please," she sobbed. "It's Ethan, he's going to kill someone. You have to come now." Her shriek echoed off the walls, bouncing back at her like judgment. I didn't flinch. Pulled out my own phone. Typed. Sent. Again and again. Vanessa ended her call just as Mason, barely upright, managed to raise his head, teeth pink with blood and broken pride. "You're finished," he spat. "Vanessa's dad is on his way. He's going to destroy you." Before the words had fully left his mouth, I grabbed a bottle of red from the shattered cabinet. Without hesitation, I brought it down across his knee. The glass exploded. Wine mixed with blood in a sudden spray across the carpet, the wall, his screaming mouth. Mason collapsed, howling. His leg, the same one that had been pressed so intimately against Vanessa's on that beach in the Maldives, now twisted at a sickening angle. "You bastard!" Vanessa threw herself over him, shielding his mangled body with her own. "If you're going to kill him, you'll have to kill me too." She clutched him tightly, whispering as much to him as to herself. "Don't be afraid, Mason. My father's almost here." Just as I wrenched Vanessa away, a voice thundered from outside. "Let go of my daughter." Her father, Henry, stormed through the front door, followed closely by her mother, Linda, and her older brother, Daniel. The moment they saw the wreckage, Vanessa bruised and crumpled on the floor, Mason bloodied and broken. All three of their faces turned stone cold. "Ethan!" Daniel shouted, eyes blazing. "What the hell is wrong with you?" He rushed me, grabbed my collar, and raised a clenched fist. "You laid a hand on my sister? I'll break both your legs." Linda dropped to her knees beside Vanessa. The moment she saw the swelling on her daughter's face, she wailed, full-throated and raw. "My baby girl," she sobbed. "What did we do to deserve this? What kind of monster are you?" Henry said nothing at first. He walked over to Mason, face like granite, kneeling to examine the damage. Mason clung to him instantly, his lifeline. "Mr. Monroe, he's lost his mind." Mason cried, voice thick with panic and theatrics. "He came at us like he wanted to kill us. If you'd been 5 minutes later, Vanessa and I would be dead." "Shut your mouth," I snapped, shoving Daniel back as I broke free of his grip. "Why don't any of you ask what these two did to deserve it?" Smack. Henry's hand cracked across my face like a gunshot. The force staggered me, split my lip and sent a line of blood trailing from the corner of my mouth. You arrogant little bastard, he barked. I don't care what Vanessa did to upset you. You don't touch her. Not like this. She's the light of this family, he spat. From the day she was born, we've loved her more than anything. We've never even raised our voices at her. Linda pointed a shaking finger at me, her grief quickly curdling into rage. And we helped you. Never forget that. If Henry hadn't pulled your father Richard out of that crash, you wouldn't even be standing here. This is how you repay us. I wiped the blood from my mouth, then laughed. Cold. Bitter. You're right, I said quietly. You did save my father's life. But tell me something. In the past 20 years, haven't we repaid you enough? Who bailed out your failing freight company? Who paid for Daniel's $1 million villa? Those luxury cars in your driveway, who bought those? Daniel lunged again, fists clenched, but Henry threw an arm out and blocked him. I don't care what happened, Henry snapped, voice booming with moral outrage. You don't lay hands on people like that. And especially not on your fiancée. Fiancée? I barked out a bitter laugh. Is that what we're still calling her? I swept my arm across the room, gesturing to the wreckage. The wine-soaked carpet, the broken glass, the blood, the urine-stained books. Why don't you ask your wonderful daughter if she's earned that title? Henry and Linda froze. Vanessa huddled against her mother, her voice trembling, tears pouring down ruined makeup. Ethan just lost it. The moment he got back, he started screaming. All I did was let Mason stay here for a while. That's all. Stay here? I repeated, my voice low and dangerous. I turned and stormed toward the study. Dragged out what was left of my mother's journal, still damp, pages warped and reeking, and threw it onto the floor in front of them. Is this what you call staying for a while? Trashing my mother's things? Claiming the house like it's theirs? Henry's face tightened, flickered, just for a second. But the outrage returned just as fast. Even so, he said through gritted teeth, violence isn't the answer. If Mason broke something important, I'm sure it wasn't intentional. You could have talked it out like a man. I stared at him, disbelief curling into rage. Talk it out? Fine. Let's talk. You want to know what your daughter's been doing for the past 6 months? How many times I called her? How many rushed phone calls she ended with "I'm busy, can't talk now," and hung up before a minute passed? Henry's jaw tensed. She said she was busy with work, I hissed, but turns out, she was busy cooking for this bastard, and screwing him in my bed. You're lying. Vanessa screamed, voice shrill, face flushed with panic. There's nothing between me and Mason. Everyone knows we're just friends. She pointed a shaking finger at me, her tone turning venomous. You're the one with the dirty mind. You twist everything. You see filth because you are filth. I didn't reply. Instead, I bent down and picked up what was still scattered across the floor. An opened condom wrapper. A set of unopened lingerie, delicate, expensive, unmistakably intimate. I held them up. Really? I said, voice flat. Let me guess, these were for his girlfriend, too? Vanessa froze, the words caught in her throat. But Linda jumped in, fast and loud, her voice sharp with righteous indignation. I've never been more disappointed in you, Ethan. Vanessa was raised like a princess. She's never had to cook or clean a day in her life, until you. She did all of it for you, and now you accuse her of this filth? She probably bought those things to surprise you. You're the one destroying this relationship, not her. She's always been a model daughter. Everyone who meets her adores her. There's a line of men who'd give anything to marry her. If it weren't for what your father did for us years ago, I never would have allowed this engagement in the first place. And look at you now, ungrateful. Violent. Cruel. I didn't respond. I was done talking. I pulled out my phone, opened the file, and cast it to the TV mounted on the living room wall. The screen lit up. 85 inches of brutal, undeniable truth. There, in high-definition clarity, Vanessa and Mason, on my bed, beneath my roof, with our engagement photo hanging above the headboard. Locked in a mess of sweat, limbs, and betrayal. No! Vanessa shrieked. She lunged toward the television, nails screeching across the screen, leaving a trail of white lines and desperation. This isn't real. I had all the cameras taken down when we changed the furniture. Oh, all of them? I said with a hollow laugh. I tapped the remote and queued up another clip. Too bad the crew you hired missed the one hidden inside the chandelier. Her breath caught. I had it professionally installed, backup feed. Just in case. I looked at the room, the trembling faces. I've already sent the best parts to my lawyer. Henry's face turned to stone. He stepped forward and yanked Vanessa's wrist. Is it true? He demanded, his voice razor-sharp. Are these videos real? Suddenly, Mason let out a howl and lunged, dragging his ruined leg behind him in a grotesque crawl, straight at my phone. It's fake, he howled. It's AI, face swap. You can't trust anything now. I kicked him aside. He collapsed against the floor with a grunt, coughing on his own spit. You want the truth? I said, pointing toward the nearby trash bin. Call the cops. Run a DNA test. There's enough in there to tell you exactly what went down this morning. It's all fresh. Vanessa went ghost white. Henry and Daniel looked sick. Even Linda, whose fury had been untouchable, stood frozen. But then she scrambled forward, gripping my arm, her voice desperate and shaking. Ethan, please. Vanessa must have had a lapse in judgment. Just a moment of weakness. You too, after all these years, all that love. I stared at her. Then shook her off like something rotten. A moment of weakness? I said coldly. Without another word, I tapped the screen again. And played the next video. On screen, Vanessa sat on Mason's lap, barefoot, laughing as she fed him grapes one by one. When that idiot comes back, she said playfully. You won't have to move out. If he makes a fuss, I'll throw a tantrum. He'll end up buying another villa just to shut me up. He's got money coming out of his ears anyway. Mason pouted, resting his chin on her shoulder. You're not actually going to marry him, are you? I'd miss you too much. Vanessa let out a quiet sigh. I don't want to, she said. But my dad would never approve otherwise. Relax, she added, I'll find a way to delay the wedding. Eventually I'll come up with a good excuse to make him break off the engagement himself. Silence swallowed the room. Thick. Cold. Total. Then Daniel exploded. He spun and slammed a fist straight into Mason's jaw. You bastard, he roared. You touched my sister? Daniel, stop. Vanessa cried, throwing herself over Mason to shield him. This wasn't his fault, I wanted it too. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were full of defiance. Mason's 100 times more tender than Ethan ever was. He never left me hanging, never made me wait up half the night for a reply. That sentence hit harder than any punch. Like a blade slipping between my ribs. All those late nights, me pacing conference rooms, rewriting contracts, flying across oceans, just to keep her in silk and comfort, to build us a future. To her, it had all been neglect. She wanted attention. And I gave her legacy. And this was how she repaid it. I stood there, rooted, silent. The room spun with fury, heartbreak, disbelief. And in the back of my mind, a memory. I was 8 years old. My father's car had lost control on a winding mountain road. He'd crashed through the guardrail. They told me later. Henry, Vanessa's father, had risked his own life that day. Had torn open a crushed car door with his bare hands. Had pulled my father from the wreckage seconds before it plunged into the gorge below. He saved him. And now, 2 decades later, his daughter was tearing my life apart from the inside. I remember the hospital. Henry's hands were wrapped in layers of gauze, every finger swollen and stitched, yet he still managed to reach up and ruffle my hair. "Don't be scared," he said with a soft smile. "Your dad's going to be just fine." And he was. After my father recovered, he gave Henry a large sum of money, quiet, unannounced, and helped him launch a freight company. From that year forward, every Christmas was spent together as a family. Vanessa would always be there, in her bubblegum pink puffer coat, sitting like royalty on her father's knee. A perfect little princess. I would stand behind my mother's legs, peeking at her from the safety of her shadow. My father loved to tease me. "Vanessa's so pretty," he'd say, winking, "how about she marries you when you both grow up?" Vanessa would blush furiously and bury her face in her father's chest. And I, mortified, would run off down the hallway, ears burning. Laughter always followed me. We were children. Then I turned 15. And my mother died. The illness took her fast. At her funeral, I locked myself in the garden shed and cried like something feral, gasping between sobs until my throat was raw. It was Vanessa who found me. She didn't say a word. She simply wrapped her arms around me from behind and started humming the lullaby my mother used to sing on sleepless nights. I didn't move. I just stood there, shuddering in her arms. That night, something changed. In silence, I made a promise. That I would protect her. Love her. Give her everything I had. My father never truly recovered. Grief hollowed him out. His health faded quickly after that. On his deathbed, frail and fading, he reached out and placed my hand in Vanessa's. His own hand covered ours, trembling. "I'm leaving Ethan in your care now," he whispered. Vanessa nodded, tears running like pearls down her cheeks. She looked at me and smiled through the grief, as if swearing the same vow. And in that moment, I believed, with everything in me, that this was what love was supposed to look like. After we got engaged, I gave her the world. Or at least everything I could carve from it with my bare hands. She once mentioned how much she loved the stars in Paris. The next night, I rented out a rotating rooftop restaurant and had the entire galaxy projected onto the ceiling, just for her. She said she wanted to learn the piano. By morning, a brand new Steinway Grand had been delivered to her doorstep. Even when she threw one of her tantrums and shattered a priceless antique vase, I didn't scold her. I just smiled and asked if she'd cut her hand. I gave her everything. My time. My devotion. My patience. And for what? I was gone 6 months. Just 6 months. That was all it took for her to become someone else. Henry and Linda exchanged a long, silent glance. Then, without warning, both of them dropped to their knees. Their eyes welled, their shoulders trembling with the weight of shame. "Please," Linda choked out, clutching at my pant leg. "Please, Ethan. She's still your Vanessa." She was just confused. Her voice cracked, rising in desperation. "She still loves you. Deep down, I know she does." Henry's voice shook, barely more than a whisper. "In my whole life, I've never begged anyone. But today, I'm begging you." They clung to me. Crying. Pleading. I looked down at them with no expression. Then I stepped back. Cold. Controlled. Absolute. "No one can talk me down," I said, my voice like ice. "A woman who betrays me, she's dead to me. And as for Mason, I turned my gaze toward the broken man curled near the corner of the room. He's going to pay for what he did. Vanessa, standing to the side, snapped. Her eyes darkened with fury, her voice twisting into venom. Stop it. Both of you. Don't beg him. He's not worth it. Her glare locked onto me, hatred pulsing in her voice. Ethan's just a spoiled bastard who thinks money fixes everything. I'd rather marry a dog than marry you. My smile was slow. Sharp. Final. I met her eyes with the full weight of my contempt. Good, I said quietly. Let's make that official. I didn't say another word. I turned and walked toward the far corner. Toward Mason. He was crumpled on the floor, his body twisted in fear, face smeared with blood and tears. The moment he saw me, he started shaking uncontrollably, crawling backward like a cornered animal. Mr. Caldwell, please, he stammered. I was wrong. I swear I was wrong. Please. His voice broke, wet and trembling, blood mixing with mucus and panic. I'll pay. Whatever it is, I'll make it right, I'll replace everything. I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him across the floor. Across the broken glass, the ruined silk rug, the remnants of everything he'd desecrated, and hauled him to the threshold of the study. I pointed to the diary. To the photographs. To what little was left of my mother. You'll pay? I said, voice low. With what? That was all I had left of her. The last part of her that was still real. And you? I stepped closer, narrowing the space between us. You let your animals piss on it. Mason shook his head violently, sobbing now. I didn't mean to, it wasn't me, it was the pets, they didn't know. Didn't know? I laughed once, cold, dry. Then let me teach you something. Without warning, I drove my boot into his already shattered knee. He screamed. A raw, animal sound. And collapsed, trembling on the floor, tears and spit streaming down his face. I grabbed a wine bottle off the desk. And then I brought it down across his head. The glass exploded, raining down like crystal shrapnel. Blood poured from the gash across his scalp, running down his face in thick red trails. He let out a hoarse cry, then crawled blindly, desperately, toward Vanessa. Dragging himself like a beaten dog, leaving a crimson smear behind him. Vanessa, Mason whimpered, choking on blood. Please, help me, don't let him. Vanessa's face twisted in anguish. Daniel, do something, she screamed, clutching her brother's arm. Please, help Mason. But Daniel didn't help her. Instead, he stepped forward. And brought his fist down on Mason's face. Again. And again. Each strike was deliberate, brutal. A rain of violence that cracked through bone, flesh, and whatever pride Mason still clung to. Daniel, stop. Are you insane? Vanessa lunged to pull him back, but he shoved her off without looking. She fell backward, landing hard, hands scraping the marble floor. She watched in horror as Mason's head snapped back with every blow. Blood streamed from his nose, his lips, his ears. His face was unrecognizable, swollen and broken, a grotesque ruin of what it had been. Finally, Daniel stopped, his knuckles split and red. He turned to me, panting, his expression shifting from rage to eager loyalty. You want more? He asked, voice hoarse. I'll break the other leg too if it helps. I didn't say a word. Arms folded, I just stood there. Watching. Vanessa crawled across the floor to Mason, gathered him in her arms, and rocked him like a child. Her tears fell fast, soaking his shirt, mixing with the blood on his chest. Then she looked up at me, her face twisted with hatred. You'll pay for this, she hissed. You think you've won? You think this is justice? You'll burn for this, Ethan. You'll get what's coming to you. I didn't blink. I raised my hand. And snapped my fingers once. A pair of footsteps echoed in response. Two men entered the room in perfect sync, their polished shoes striking the tile like a metronome of judgment. One was my attorney. The other, a court-appointed notary. They each carried thick portfolios of paper, bound and stamped. The silence in the living room deepened. Each footstep from the two men landed like a hammer on a coffin lid. I spoke quietly, without anger, without hesitation. Proceed. My lawyer stepped forward, adjusted his glasses, and opened the folder in his hands. His voice was clinical. Detached. Like reading out a weather report. As per Mr. Caldwell's instructions, he began. We hereby announce the immediate withdrawal of all investment capital from Monroe Transportation Company. A pause. No reaction yet. In addition, he continued. The engagement between Mr. Ethan Caldwell and Miss Vanessa Monroe is now formally and irrevocably terminated. Vanessa flinched, but made no sound. And lastly, Mr. Mason Green is held financially liable for the full extent of property damage incurred during his illegal occupancy of Mr. Caldwell's estate. Damaged goods include original furnishings, commissioned artwork, and sentimental heirlooms. The total estimated loss exceeds. He flipped a page. $150 million. The room exploded. 100 and, what? Mason's voice cracked as he tried to lift his head from Vanessa's lap. Blood clung to his teeth. His pupils were dilated with panic. I don't have that kind of money. I can't pay that. I walked toward him slowly, then crouched, just enough to meet his eyes. Can't pay? I asked softly. Then get used to concrete walls and iron bars. Mason let out a whimper. Henry stumbled forward, face ghost white, words tumbling over each other. Ethan, you can't, we've known each other all our lives. Your father and I. I cut him off with a glare sharp enough to stop breath. Your daughter didn't just destroy history, I said. She desecrated memory. She didn't just ruin trust, she pissed on my mother's name. Linda collapsed to her knees, clutching at her chest as if it would break apart. Please, she wailed. Henry saved your father's life, have you forgotten that? And Vanessa, she was young, confused, she made a mistake, something every woman makes at least once in her life. I turned to Vanessa. And for a moment. Just a second. I allowed myself to look at her. Truly look. That face. The one I used to dream about. The one I imagined waiting for me at the end of long flights, tough negotiations, sleepless nights. The face I once thought would grow old beside mine. Now it was nothing but a mask. Her makeup was ruined. Mascara streaked down her cheeks in black rivers. But her eyes, those eyes I used to believe in, still burned with defiance. A moment of weakness? I repeated with a cold laugh. Half a year isn't a moment. That's long enough to know exactly what you're doing. Daniel stepped forward quickly, voice suddenly oily with submission. This whole thing is our fault, he said, bowing slightly. Don't worry, Ethan, we'll keep Vanessa in line from now on. As for Mason, that bastard, whatever you want to do with him, we won't stop you. Vanessa's face twisted in disbelief. Daniel, she cried. I'm your sister. How can you turn on me like this? Daniel didn't even look at her. He rounded on Mason instead, his voice turning sharp. You piece of trash, get on your knees and apologize to Mr. Caldwell. Mason flinched. Then trembled. Then obeyed. He crawled forward, face swollen and bloodied, and dropped to his knees at my feet. I'm sorry, Mr. Caldwell, please forgive me. I didn't even glance at him. I was looking at Vanessa. Last chance, I said quietly. Anything left to say? She bit her lip so hard it broke the skin. Blood mixed with smeared lipstick. Her voice came out raw and guttural. "I hate you, Ethan." I nodded. "Good." Then I turned to the lawyer. "Have them sign." My attorney laid the documents out across the table, sheet by sheet. Termination clauses, investment withdrawals, breach of engagement paperwork. The notary began recording the entire process, the camera's red light blinking steadily in the dead quiet room. Henry picked up the pen with shaking hands. Before signing, he looked up one last time, eyes pleading. "Ethan, if you pull the funding, Monroe Transport will collapse. We have families, employees, we won't survive." "That's not my concern," I replied coldly. "Sign it. Or I call the police." One by one, the names were signed. Henry. Linda. Daniel. Then Vanessa. She took the pen like it was a blade. Dug it into the page so hard it nearly tore through. When she looked up, her eyes were full of venom. "Ethan," she whispered, trembling with hate. "You'll regret this. I swear to God, you will." I didn't blink. "The only thing I regret," I said quietly, "is not seeing you for what you were, sooner." The last page was signed. My lawyer gathered the documents. The notary announced the completion of the process. Silence settled once more. Only this time, it wasn't tension. It was finality. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, Vanessa's voice cracked through the silence. "Ethan. How dare you do this to me?" I didn't look back. My voice was calm, detached. "You have 12 hours to vacate the villa. If you're still here after that, security will handle it." I stepped out into the night. The cold wind brushed across my face, sharp, cleansing. 6 months ago, I left this house with a heart full of plans. I'd imagined coming home to the woman I loved. To a life we would build, together. But now, there was nothing left but glass, smoke, and silence. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from my assistant. "Mr. Caldwell, as per your instructions, the Monroe family accounts have been frozen. The media have been briefed for tomorrow's release." I replied with a single word. "Good." Then I tilted my head toward the sky. Stars blinked above me, quiet, eternal. My mother once told me, "Life is a long journey. Some people are meant to walk with you only for a while." I hadn't understood her then. Now I did. Vanessa was never meant to stay. She was a detour. Not a destination. The next morning, I stood by the villa's tall windows, sipping coffee in silence. Outside, the movers were already at work. Mason was dragged out like a broken animal, half conscious, half forgotten. Vanessa followed, shoulders slumped, her suitcase scraping the stone path. When she glanced up and saw me standing behind the glass, our eyes met. For one moment, hers flared with rage. Then, just as quickly, the fire died. Replaced by something colder. Deeper. Defeat. She knew. It was over. As of today, she was no longer the pampered future Mrs. Caldwell. She was just another name. Buried under debt, disgrace, and her own damn choices. A knock came at the door. My assistant stepped in, tablet in hand, voice low and efficient. "Mr. Caldwell, the statement's gone public. Monroe Transportation officially filed for bankruptcy this morning." I nodded. No surprise. No reaction. Just inevitability. I took one last look around the villa, this house that once held every dream I had for the future. Love. Family. Legacy. Now it was just a shell. Beautiful, but empty. "Sell it," I said simply, turning away. Then I stepped out the front door. The sun was rising. The air was clean. And for the first time in a long while, I felt free.